So there's a new school that's being built, and each classroom will have an area of 80 square meters. So if this is a classroom, the area of that classroom is 80 square meters. We have to figure out 4 possible classroom designs. Well, what do you know about the area of a rectangle or a square? Rectangle or square. How would you calculate the area of a rectangle? Yes. You would do the length times the width. So in your groups right now, we don't know the length and width. Pay attention. Shh. We know that whatever the length is and whatever the width is, if you multiply them together, you have to get 80. It has to be 80 square meters. So you're going to come up in your groups with 4 possibilities. There could be different possible combinations of the classroom. The classroom, I'll do one for you, okay? And you're not allowed to use this one. The classroom could be 1 meter. This is the easiest example. 1 times what gives you 80? 80. So it could be 1 meter wide and 80 meters long. Okay? Find 4 more possible designs. Excellent. You got 5 by 16. Okay, raise your hand if you got 5 by 16. Another possibility was 4 times 20. And I heard someone say, can we take 80 and divide it by a number? Sure, why not? You're working backwards. So what did you do, Kareem?
I did 80 divided by 2.
You did 80 divided by 2, and what'd you get?
I got 40.
Good. So then it would be 40 by 2. So these are all the possible combinations, because we know that if we find the area of all of these, the answer is going to be 80. And that's what they said. It has to have an area of 80 meters squared. Now what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, so the area is the same for all of these, but we're going to figure out which one of these has the smallest perimeter. Is the perimeter the same for all of these? No. So how do you calculate perimeter? You add up all the sides, right? So for the first one, I'll do it for you, and you're going to do the rest. We're going to take 1 plus 80 plus, what would this side be? 1?
Oh.
Yeah. And then the bottom, this side would be 80. So what's the perimeter for the first possible classroom?
Oh, wait, hold on. Which one are we doing?
1 plus 80 plus 1 plus 80 equals 162, and we're working with meters. So the the perimeter of the first one is 162. I want you to find the perimeter of all of these classrooms. What's the perimeter of B? 16 plus 16 plus 5 plus 5 equals?
Yes, it's. Oh, wait, hold on.
42.
Sorry, my bad.
Already I know that this one is smaller than that one. Well, let's keep going and see if the other 2 are smaller. 20 plus 20 plus 4 plus 4 equals 48. It's bigger. Last one is 40 plus 40 plus 2 plus 2. 84. So which one has the smallest perimeter? B has the smallest perimeter. Now I want you to actually, what we're going to do right now is we're going to figure out, I want you to tell me, if I said that the room has to be a square, if I tell you the room has to be a square, meaning that all sides have to be the same and you're allowed to have decimals, how would you figure out what the dimensions of this would be if it was a square? So all 4 sides are equal. What would you do? So we would not do 80 divided by 4, because if you did 80 divided by 4, you would get 20. But the area, if the length was 20 and the width was 20, that doesn't equal 80, right? The area has to be equal to 80. So that does not work. So what's the opposite of squaring a number? I want to know, I'll give you a clue here. I want to know the root. What times what gives me 80? What times what gives me 80? You're trying to find 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 80. If I gave you the number 25, for example, and I said, what times what is 25? And it has to be the same number. What times what is 25? 5 times 5. How would
Oh,
you
you want to know
how would you
that?
do that on your calculator? You would do square root of 25.
Yeah.
So how would we calculate what times what gives me 80?
80 square root.
Square root of 80. Excellent. What is the square root of 80? We're going to round it off to 8.9, okay? So is it true that if this was 8.9 and this was 8.9 approximately, would it give you an area of 80?
Yes.
Yes, so that is also a possibility for the classroom. Let's figure out the perimeter of this classroom now. If it's 8.9 by 8.9 by 8.9 by 8.9, how would you calculate the perimeter?
No, you add it.
You can add it. You can do 8.9 plus 8.9 plus 8.9 plus 8.9. That takes forever. Or you could do 8.9. Good. So what is the perimeter of this classroom?
35.
Okay. So you're going to be asked on your test in each WAO, you're going to say which shape produces the smallest perimeter. The answer is always a square. Okay? Does that make sense? So if I ask you, here, let's do an example. This will make more sense. That one was too easy. You guys right now. Okay, hold on. I want you to try this one. Hold on. Okay, just put it on my desk.
Also, did you collect the statement?
Yes, I did. Put it on my desk, please. Here we go, this one. Yes, 6 times 6. Okay, so how do we get that? Now, yep.
When you're doing the perimeter, you always have to add it, or can you do times?
You can do times 4. I was just trying to break it down for everyone, but yeah, you can do times 4. Okay, another thing you need to know about a square, this is the last thing you need to know.
It's a square.
I want everyone to copy this down. And did you copy this? Okay, so you will be asked this on your test, and you'll be asked this on each way out. So you're gonna have to watch this lesson. Okay? The square will always produce. It will always have the smallest perimeter. And if we go back and we calculate the area of all those shapes, the one that's a square will always have the greatest possible area. Okay, so we'll do another example of a square. For area, let's do, hold on. Let's test it. Hold me a picture of this. So this question says, let's test to see if it's true. Which of the following rectangles provides the maximum area for a perimeter of 16? Is a square a rectangle?
No.
Yes, it is. A square? So you're going to see the word rectangle, but a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square.
That's absolutely.
Write that down. A square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square, and I'll explain why.
Oh.
Think about it.
I think about it.
A square is a rectangle because a rectangle has to have 4 sides, right? Does a square have 4 sides? Does a square have sides that are perpendicular to each other?
Yeah.
Does a square have the opposite sides? Are they equal? Yes? The opposite sides are equal? So a square is a rectangle. Yes, it's a type of rectangle. This is very important. A square is a type of rectangle, but I can't go and say, oh, well, a rectangle is a square. No, a rectangle is not a square because it doesn't have 4 equal sides. But the definition of a rectangle works for a square, okay? So when they say which of the following rectangles, it can be a rectangle or a square because a square is a rectangle, okay? So if you were given this question, based on what I just taught you, just by looking at these diagrams, what's the answer? Which one will give the biggest area? A, B, C, or D? Show of hands. Who thinks A is going to give me the maximum area? Who thinks B? The question said which one has the maximum, so the greatest area. So what? Let's calculate it. We can avoid all the calculations. We could just look at it and we know that the one that's a square is going to have the maximum. Yeah. Let's calculate it. What's the area of A? 6 times 2. 12. The perimeter is 16, okay? What's the area of B? 4 times 4. What's the area of C?
7 times 1, 7.
What's the area of D? Which one has the maximum, the greatest area? A, B, C, or D?
B.
Is that a square? So then yes, that has the greatest area.